Basic Education Minister Angie Motshekga says she's satisfied with the first day of schools reopening today. The minister visited 2 schools in Ekurhuleni to assess their readiness. She says while she's pleased with the progress so far, she's also extremely concerned about the issues of vandalism. Now, for more on this story, I'm joined in the studio by our reporter Mbali Thethani, who was following the Basic Education Minister around this morning. Very good afternoon to you, Mbali. So Ekurhuleni was the destination of choice for today. What did you see on the ground?
Well, Basic Education Minister Angie Motshekga basically went around inspecting the various schools on the East Rand, and she went to schools in Guatemala. She went to at least 2 high schools because we know that today was the first day of school for those in matric and as well for those in grade 7. And she also then lastly went to a primary school as well in the area. And I must say, just observing throughout the whole day, especially in the morning, I mean, these schools have gone out of their way to ensure that they are adhering to the lockdown regulations. In terms of issues around social distancing, we've also seen the issues around screening of pupils as soon as they come into school. We've also seen the use of sanitizers as well. I think it was much more easier for them as well to also deal with those in high schools. You know, matrics are much older, so they were at least able to adhere to some of those lockdown regulations. I mean, when you look at the schools, they've already made these demarcations to ensure that, you know, these are the places where you're allowed to stand to observe that 1 meter distance. So, you know, when she looked at those schools, she was quite satisfied, and she was saying that she's quite encouraged by the lengths that these schools have gone through to ensure that, you know, pupils are safe as well as teachers are safe as well. Something that also came out for me is also looking at a school. It was a primary school in Guatemala, and what they've done, because we know that there's issues around vandalism, so what they've done is that they don't have really proper running water from taps. So they've made these water stations outside each and every school to ensure that, you know, when pupils go into classrooms, they're able to wash their hands, there's sanitizers as well, and they've also placed these sanitizers throughout the school. But I just want us to listen to the sound clip from the minister, because she also spoke about the issues around vandalism and how problematic it still is for the department.
I'm very encouraged that we have a good start, and I hope that we sustain it, because in July we were supposed to receive the next phase. It was not easy to reorganize ourselves and get the place ready, but I'm encouraged that I think the sector has managed to really find its feet to get started. So I'm very encouraged. There are still some disturbing problems of vandalism which are likely to continue and take most of our resources, because we don't have new budgets. We're using old budgets. I'm told the taps were installed yesterday. This morning they were removed. But the SGB, you saw the SGB chairperson in overalls working with other people who've got skills in the township to help and restore the services. The director told me also there was a school which was unlikely to open today because of vandalism. But the community and the contractor worked overnight to make sure that that school, which was not supposed to open today, has been opened. They had already arranged places for the learners at the other class, because they were not sure if they will be able to resolve the problems. But I'm told they worked throughout the evening yesterday, early in the morning, and that school could resume. So vandalism is one of the biggest threats now that facing us. We'll have to, as a sector, assisted by police, and I must say the police have helped us a lot. I'm told in Gauteng they've done more than 100 arrests, but it seems it just doesn't stop. So we'll have again to consult with them and see what more do we do to protect schools.
Now, Mbali, the issue of vandalism is clearly a huge one, not just in Gauteng. As far as security measures are concerned, what are the options that the minister perhaps may have highlighted as to how they hope to stop this from becoming the huge problem that it is?
Well, she says that they are basically working with police, you know, just to ensure that there is that security at those schools. But it is quite problematic. We do have a number of schools. And like she said in that clip, just yesterday, that school fixed the taps But this morning, when they came to come and inspect the school, those taps were gone. You know, and you know, hygiene is quite important when dealing with the coronavirus. So this is quite of a challenge, you know. But Tammy, I anticipate that, you know, going into July, where we are beginning to phase in other learners, you know, we will now begin to see the real problems of the Department of Education. We also know that, you know, these classrooms have now been trickled down. They are much smaller. But, you know, the problem is, when it comes to July and everybody else is back in the classrooms, how will the department deal with those big numbers of pupils in their classrooms? We also know that, you know, when it comes to the big numbers, they say that they'll also be reaching out to community halls. They'll be trying to use that. But just the logistics around, you know, you go to your school every morning. Now you're having to go to a different venue where you'll be having your classrooms. So it will be quite interesting, you know, going forward, how we monitor where teaching and learning will be taking place and how different it will be.
And also, I mean, if you go to a different venue, a different location, that venue also needs to be safety checked. It also has to be disinfected and sanitized. And every single thing that was done to the schools needs to then be trickled over to that community center. But I'm thinking about the issue of logistics now and the changing around of the classrooms. Where does that stand?
Well, for now, Tammy, you know, something that was also quite important that came out today. Most of the schools that we went to were not using today for teaching and learning. They were basically orientating some of the learners who were there at school. So especially at the primary school, they had these slideshows of, you know, social distancing, the coronavirus, explaining to the pupils there, you know, why they are in this new setup and this new reality. So, you know, while they teach, especially the young ones, how to remain safe and how the teachers to remain safe as well, is quite important. And as you're pointing out, you know, now that if they're going to be moving to a different venue, they'll have more logistics and more problems to be dealing with. So it'll also be quite important then when they decide where teaching and learning will be taking place, because the truth of the matter is they're going to need bigger venues, because social distancing is important. And we know that another problem in the education sector is that we have an overcrowding of classrooms. So, you know, there are still many hurdles for the basic education department to overcome.
There are still some organizations that are resistant to the reopening of schools, and we did also hear you know, the minister talking about what parents should do if they've decided to pull their children out of school. How was the attendance? Like, how many of the learners actually did attend?
Well, most of the pupils attended a school today, from what we heard from the minister, but she did speak about, you know, those parents who are still anxious and who want to keep their children at home. But the problem will come, Tammy, if, you know, when you start writing exams and you start writing tests, how will they handle that? Kids will begin to fall behind with their schoolwork. So, like I say, it's still it's a hurdle, you know, it's a learning curve for them. You know, how do we deal with this? If, as a parent, I decide I'm going to keep my child at home because I just don't trust that we are ready to have teaching and learning. So, yes, some can stay home, they can communicate with the teachers, they can keep up with the schoolwork, but what will happen when they have tests and exams?
I mean, I think what's quite encouraging is that it looks like there's an open line of communication. It looks like these issues are still being deliberated. From the sound of it, the minister sounded as if, you know, she was still trying to see what type of you know, setups could work best for parents as well as students. But thank you so much for that, Mbali.